start off with a couple of easy ones to warm up or whatever. to find out a little more about you. I think probably some of us know a lot about you and some of us not so much or whatever. But I guess I was going to ask, probably most of us know you're part of a community in Philadelphia, called the right city.
Yeah, that was good. You're doing good so far.
Good.
Yeah.
Called Simple Way.
Yeah. Still doing good.
That's good. I'm getting confident now. So I was going to ask you, could you, just in a few words or phrases, kind of sum up for us what are some of the kind of hallmarks or characteristics of that community? What are some of your passions or commitments there?
Yeah, well, we say that we're a web of friends trying to love God, love people, and follow Jesus. And we're doing that in our neighborhood and in our world. So there's a local side of the Simple Way and of our community that's happening right on Potter Street, in North Philadelphia. And that has all kinds of little manifestations. And then we have this vision that Jesus spoke of the kingdom of God, coming on earth. So that has global pieces to it, and so there's on the local side we've got a handful of houses on the same block within walking distance of each other, and we just try to be good neighbors, and we try to have a real deliberate community life together. So we do morning prayer and meals, and we share money in different ways and share life with neighbors and help kids with homework and run people to appointments and sit down and almost every few days a neighbor invites us over to dinner. So we kind of hang out with people, and then outside of the immediate neighborhood, we've got a magazine called Conspire Magazine. I like the subtitle. It's Plotting Goodness Together. So we've already been talking to folks here about maybe being a co-conspirator and contributing and, receiving that. And then we've got things going like we have a new project called Friends Without Borders, which is really to try to build friendships across the barriers of conflict. So, from Israel and Palestine to the U.S. and Afghanistan, we've been trying to weave this network of friends that have a vision for a world without walls and borders, and whether they're religious or denominational or political or whatever. So those things all of it comes down to the relationships. So, and I mean, even something like as big as Friends Without Borders started by having good friends that are in Iraq and Afghanistan that we want the world to know and to see the possibility for friendship and reconciliation. So, yeah, I like to say, dream big and live small. That's kind of what we're trying to do.
Well, it sounds brilliant. Can I ask, it sounds quite a sort of radical experiment, or I don't know if you call it an experiment or not, but what set you on that road towards the kind of thing you're doing now? I'm wondering what some of your big influences or inspirations were for you personally.
Boy, there's been so many inspirations. I guess initially reading the Bible and the Gospels, that sparks a lot of things. That was certainly it for me. And yet then I love how Karl Barth said we have to read the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. So to wrestle with how the things Jesus said, affect the world that we live in, not just use our faith as a ticket out of this world, but as a real reason to engage the world that we live in. So a lot of the initial inspiration of our community came from homeless families, mostly homeless mothers in Philadelphia that were really, really courageous in sort of exposing the growing homelessness of families, and so they became our friends and teachers, and some of those families are still a huge part of our lives now. But then there's other folks like Tony Campolo, who was my teacher in undergrad college, and he's a great friend, and he was my sociology teacher, and so he's a great inspiration. And Tony and I are writing a little book together, so it's a gift to kind of keep a conversation going for a lot of years now. So he and there's other folks, Mother Teresa and the Catholic worker movement, Dorothy Day, and others are huge inspiration for us. And then I guess across the traditions, I grew up Methodist, so I started reading John Wesley, and I was like, holy cow, this guy was wild, only the Methodists still read him, and but that's so there's so many, another civil rights person in the States that is a name maybe not too many people know, but it's Dr. John Perkins. And he was a contemporary of Dr. King and others, like 85-year-old African-American guy. So he's been my real teacher and mentor too for about 15 years. So he's kind of like a grandfather to in a spiritual sense, to a lot of the things that we're doing.
Brilliant. One thing I've kind of noticed looking at people I know here in Northern Ireland who have maybe been reading some of your stuff or hearing stories about what you're up to, I've kind of noticed that people seem to be inspired and uncomfortable in equal measure. I was going to tell you about, I have a good friend who told me he took your book, The Irresistible Revolution, on holiday with him. And he's a very honest guy, my friend, and he admitted to me that halfway through the holiday he stopped reading it because he realised at this point in his life he wasn't willing to walk that kind of path, and he didn't want to just finish the book and say that was really inspiring and then do nothing about it, which I thought was quite an honest reaction. But I was interested.
That's real sweet. I don't take it on holiday with me either. So.
It didn't go well with somebody at all. So, but I was going to ask. Do you see the kind of radical lifestyle that you guys are trying to walk in Philadelphia? Do you see it as something that you feel all Christians should walk that same kind of path, or do you see yourselves as kind of a prophetic voice on the fringe that's kind of making people uncomfortable and disturbing them and whatever?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes I get the question, it's not exactly what you're asking, but sometimes people in the States, they'll say to me, are you saying that every Christian has to care about poor people? And my simple answer is like, yeah, but on a deeper level, it's like, no, you don't have to. Like, we get to. Like, this we're made to live for something bigger than ourselves, and like, it's not something we do out of guilt or duty, but something that we're just driven to by love, I guess. We've tasted how good God is, and that makes us care about the plight and suffering of other people. So the people that I've seen that are most alive in the world are people that have discovered that secret, and they've stopped just reading the prosperity gospel and all the books about finding your better life and becoming a better you and all this obsession with ourselves. If we're not careful, we lose what Jesus was saying, which if you want to find your life, you got to give it away. That's what it's about. And so the people that have found that, I think, are folks that are living wonderful lives of sacrifice. But I think if you came up to them and you're like, wow, how do you do this? They'd be like, this is what I'm made for, And so I'm not a big fan of guilt, and I try in my writing and things like to have humor and not to act out of guilt. And Mother Teresa, one of my favorite lines of her was a journalist came up and he said, oh, Mother Teresa, you're such a saint. I couldn't do what you do if you paid me $1 million. And she said, I wouldn't do it for $1 million either. I love that. She's like, so winsomely, she's like, I'd do it because it's what we're made for. I don't care, what we get from it. So, yeah.
Great. That's brilliant.